Hey there, my name's Joe Keyport, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. This week, I talked to Andy Campion of the band Obstructionist. After a few growing pains, the melodic punk band is back from a hiatus to release their self-titled debut album. Listening to the record was a total nostalgia trip for me as a teen who grew up listening to skate punk and hardcore. The band is releasing their first single off of that record today called Knives. So once obviously you've finished this podcast, you should go check them out immediately. It's Obstructionist, right here on the Ear Coffee Podcast. Andy, how's it going here tonight?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So before we always jump in, I've been asking bands and people who play in bands kind of what their like log line is for when they have to describe what their band does to people. You know, you always have like that family member, that friend who doesn't usually pay attention, but they're like, "Oh, cool, you make music. What kind of music do you make? What is your go-to like one sentence, two sentence like response to that, so that you're not just like, so you can just kind of get it out of the way and move on?"
Good question. I think we'd probably consider it like I usually like to say like Fat Wreck Chords 90s skate punk meets like minor chords and kind of like a My Chemical Romance vibe mixed with like Ride the Lightning and the Wilhelm Scream and Propaganda. Propaganda is probably like, if Propaganda was a genre, then I'd say that. But
Yeah.
I think it's more of like melodic punk rock, hardcore type stuff.
Gotcha. So before we, jump into like the band, talk to me about your history getting into music leading up to, when you started or got into the Obstructionist.
Definitely. So I think the love for music really started with my dad, honestly, because I was raised in like a household where my dad was always playing music all the time. Like I remember whenever he'd come home from work, he'd always have his like iPod in the living room with speakers playing music all the time while he was reading. So I pretty much was raised on a lot of definitely not like in the punk rock vein, but it was like old school country, like Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson, but he was also really into like big band stuff and jazz and like a lot of classic rock, typical dad rock stuff, But
Yeah.
I think for as far as like my influence goes for like the music I'm playing now, I think it really started off with like Green Day, honestly. Kind of like what most people say, like their gateway bands, like Green Day and Metallica and all that type of stuff. Like I kind of just like went head over heels for that type of music immediately, and then it kind of snowballed from there. Like I just like started to try to discover as many bands as I possibly could within like the metal and punk rock genres. And like, it's, it kind of started off from that sort of 90s pop punk, and then it just sprouted off into every other type of genre. So I think it kind of snowballed from when I started listening to Green Day.
Okay.
And, I started to fall in love with like NoFX and like Propaganda, and I was really into like 80s hardcore, like Black Flag and the Circle Jerks and, that type of thing. So yeah, kind of all started from there. And then I ended up meeting the guys in my band right now, and they kind of had a kindred spirit for that type of music as well. So it kind of went from there.
What was your jumping point to go from, you said, it's snowball as you're trying to find more music and you're consuming more. What was that jump from like, Green Day it's within the same world of like a band like Black Flag, but what was your jumping off point? Was it like a family member who gave you like a record, like, hey, listen to this? Or was it more like you're listening and suddenly like, oh, what's this? And what's this? What was that band that moved you from pop punk into like 80s hardcore?
I think Black Flag was definitely the pivotal band, and like kind of moving on from like pop punk to, I don't know, the gatekeeper sounding legit punk, quote unquote, but like, yeah. So I mean, it kind of, I remember I was in like, I think junior year of high school, and I was riding the bus home from school, and I had listened to Damaged for the first time from Black Flag, and it just like blew my mind. Like, and from then on, I just started getting really into that type of music, and I started like watching like documentaries on YouTube about punk music, and and all the all those geriatric punks on those documentaries are talking about the glory days and all those bands, and so I'm kind of just like I started like catching on to that type of music a lot from like those types of documentaries, and like once you hear about Black Flag, then you hear about like Dead Kennedys and so on and so on. So I went from there, but yeah, I think Black Flag was definitely the first like pivotal moment.
Nice. And since I don't always talk to Black Flag fans, what's your favorite era of the band vocalist wise? Was it Keith Morris, Rollins, Dez?
That's a great question. That's a great question. I really appreciate the Henry
Okay.
Rollins stuff, but beyond like the Slip It In album, I'm not too big into it. Like I really like Damaged through to My War and then Slip It In, but like otherwise I really, really, really like the Nervous Breakdown EP with Keith Morris. Like I'm a huge fan of his band Off.
Yep.
And the Circle Jerks, and like I really like all the eras of the band. Not so much their newest one they got going, but like I think Henry Rollins probably my favorite.
Okay, I respect it. So then, were you playing in bands alongside, or at least playing music while you're going down this path of punk music, or was what became the Obstructionist, was that kind of your first foray into playing live?
Obstructionist was definitely my first like starting moment to playing live music, but I was playing guitar for quite maybe I think 3 something years before that. And it's kind of funny because like I was my dad actually signed me up to these guitar lessons in New Richmond from this guy named Bernie Wallenberg, and he was giving me some private guitar lessons, and I met a guy at our lesson, and I noticed a bunch of like punk band guitar like stickers on his guitar case, and I was like, "Hey, we should jam sometime." And he's like, "Yeah, cool." And he's my friend Zach. He used to play an Obstructionist, and we kind of like founded the project together. And but we started this band of ours like with the name Tundra Kids at first. Like it was the title song off of a No Trigger song.
Okay.
And so it kind of started off like sort of somewhat of like a pop punkish project. Like we were really into like a Wilhelm Scream and Narwhals and No Trigger and stuff like that. So like but then we were like, yeah, we got to find a full band, and we started writing more songs that were a little bit more dark and less pop punkish. So then we kind of we found these our lead guitarist Eric and a drummer named Eric Herman, and we kind of started Obstructionist from that, and then like kind of established Tundra Kids into Obstructionist. But yeah, that was definitely my like gateway into playing music live. I think that was in about early 2018, I believe.
Okay. So how old were you when you started playing out? Were you still in your teens or?
I think I was like just turning 20,
Okay.
21, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. Just
Yeah.
old enough to get playing bars and stuff.
Yeah. So what was that transition like, kind of moving into that kind of darker, that more melodic, hardcore place the band was playing in? Because I was reading through that bio you sent me, and you mentioned that first EP you put out, Disbelief, in 2018, I believe, was written by Zach. It was more he had written it and put it together, and then you all learned it and recorded it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep. So like yeah, so like Zach and I, when we were starting like 100 Kids, we wrote this song called Expectations, and it was very much like about living your own way and being yourself, and it was more of a catchy poppy type of song. And then he had this other batch of songs which ended up being pretty much the entirety of the Disbelief EP that we put out as Obstructionist. And at the time, him and I were kind of going through our like, like sort of edgy atheist phase in a way. So it was a bit, I don't know. I got mixed feelings about it, but I mean, like it was good to get out of our system, I think. And so we put out that EP called Disbelief, and a lot of the songs was kind of a sort of like a angst about like organized religion at the time and how we perceived it and how we thought it was affecting the world and everything. But yeah, so that with that message in itself, it started to get a little bit more dark. But I mean, the songs were at the same time kind of catchier and sort of in that '90s punk vein. But after we put out Disbelief, Zach ended up moving to Sioux Falls, so he ended up stepping out of the band, and we ended up kind of going through some lineup changes because he was our bass player and our vocalist.
Right.
So we had to, find a bassist and a vocalist after he left the band, and we kind of just started from scratch at that point because I think like all the songs on that Disbelief EP were his basically, and he wrote them. So, after he left, it was kind of time for us to all write our own music as, myself and our drummer and our lead guitarist together as we tried to find a bassist and a vocalist. And so we ended up writing a full album at that point, and we're kind of just like trying to establish the lineup, and we're pretty much set at this point, but we got it all recorded and ready to go. And but yeah, I think the full length album is less like political and edgy, I guess, and it's more of like the lyrical themes are pretty much about like carrying on with life and perseverance and discipline and like trying to keep a positive attitude and spread it to other people who are, otherwise let down and overwhelmed by how the world around us is like right now. So we just wanted to make something that wasn't necessarily like commercially accessible, but I mean like lyrically accessible, where like anyone who's maybe going through a rough time could listen to it and be like, yeah, I understand this message, and it's not quite as like antagonizing as Disbelief was at the time. But
yeah, with Zach leaving, and were you all already like working on music individually, or at least trying to write for the band, or was it something like Zach, is like I'm heading out, and you were just like, well, what do we do next? Is it now we try to put some songs together and continue that project? What was that that moment like for the band?
It was a little bit of both. I think we each kind of had our own little song demos. Like before I ended up getting like learning how to use like Reaper and like home recording equipment, I pretty much just like used voice memos on my phone to record riffs and stuff. And I'd send it to our group chat like, hey, what do you guys think of this? And then, our lead guitarist Eric would be able to record stuff on like Logic, and our drummer had like a MIDI kit that he could use, and we kind of like compiled all these like instrumental demos together. But I think we maybe had like 3 or 4 while Zach was still in the band, and we were, like Zach was actually writing some lyrics for them too, but like then he ended up moving away, and so we kind of had to agree that it was time to move forward. And so like I think like another 5 or 6 songs were came about after the fact that he left. But yeah, but I mean it was one of those things where we were kind of questioning like, what do we do now? Like I felt like we kind of felt like our whole reputation that we had as like a band that just got started was kind of, a lot of it seemed like it was his project, but at the same time, like I wanted to keep it going because like I was so like enthralled by how good of musicians that our lead guitarist and our drummer was. So it's like I can't like pass this up. So I wanted to keep it going, and they all wanted to keep it going as well, because we kind of started, like I do our artwork for our band, and we were trying to like get this like an image going, and like we had all these like songs that we were really working on. So it's like we're like, this is, we really believe in this, and it's not like the kind of thing where we want to just throw it in the garbage and be like, yeah, like forget about it. So we wanted to keep going after that, and I think we did that pretty well at this point.
Yeah. With the fact that you had the momentum going, did you consider just like starting a whole new band with just like leaving at least the Obstructionist, name and image behind, and just keeping the band, like the players you had, just something different? Or was that ever a possibility for you? Or was it just more, we have the momentum, we have the name, we have, like you said, the image, like let's just push?
We honestly kind of just wanted to move forward, and we, like all of us, after we kind of had that conversation with parting ways and all that, at first we kept persevering and tried to figure out some lineup changes and find musicians who were kind of into the same influences as us, so we could have a good writing process and move forward. But I think none of us really came to any point where we're like, oh, what if we like scratch the name and then just put these songs into a new project? We kind of just wanted to keep the Obstructionist thing going, and so it pretty much just stayed its course, honestly, and we kind of just like tackled the barriers as they came, and got to the point we're at now. So, yep.
Cool. Well, talk to me about your self-titled record. You kind of touched on it a little bit with just kind of how you wanted to move away from Disbelief's just antagonistic and a little more nihilistic approaches at times as you were processing those things. Well, talk to me, like, what was the time frame you were writing this record as? Like, was it within the last year, couple years, or what were you, how are you working on this stuff? And
Yeah, sure. So we pretty much started writing these songs, I think in like early 2019 or something, and we wanted to go in a more, I think, I don't want to say less poppy, because I do enjoy like catchy music and
mhm.
everything like that, and we all do. But like we wanted to really, really focus on the songwriting as a collective group and kind of see how we all operate as songwriters together, instead of having like one person write the music and then we all learn it. So this was kind of like our sort of our like proving ground in a way, like to see how we operate as a band and write songs, because this is the first time where um Herman and Eric and I were writing songs, and we were all looking for like a bass player and a vocalist too in the process. So we were pretty much just like refining our songs like crazy, because we were also searching for, a bass player and a vocalist, and we pretty much have that secured right now. But at the time, we were focusing a lot on those other two missing components. But at the same time, we were just like honing these songs that we've been sitting on for a long time. Like, a month would pass by and we'd listen to the demo so many times and be like, okay, well, what if we like add this little motif
Mhm.
or this little thing, or so we just spent like over like almost like 2 years just like refining and refining and refining these songs till they got to the point where we were like really happy about them. And then we ended up finding a vocalist named Pat Barrows, and he's plays in Shot Memory right now. But it's his music is sort of like what we started off doing. Like it was sort of like the pop punk, skate punk type of thing. But he's super cool, and he's got a lot of energy, and like he wrote the lyrics to the songs that we have got now and stuff, and that we're gonna be releasing. And it was cool. He just brings a lot of energy and enthusiasm to the band that we both are really, really into. So that's been pretty cool. So
Yeah.
yeah, but that's pretty much the gist of it. Yeah, I think like the theme overall of the new album is like about perseverance and moving on forward with life, even if the world feels crappy, because
Yeah.
like I said, like that EP that we put out before was very much like nihilistic and everything like that. But it's like there's still kind of the gloominess to the new album that we're putting out, but at the same time, it's like, so how do you overcome that instead of wallow in it, feel self defeated about it? So we just wanted to move into a more positive direction, I guess.
It's funny because the way you talk about it, it sounds less like your it was a, like if I listening to it in context, or listening to context of how you kind of talked about the writing, it's definitely not this. But listening through it, it kind of almost felt like a COVID album at times, based on like the whole, like, we're in this together, we're gonna see through it. People are kind of trash at times, and but the way you describe it, it's just like it's obviously not. Were the lyrics written more toward throughout 2020, or was it more just those were?
They were, yep. Yeah, they were. It was. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Actually, like a
Yeah.
COVID album, it very much was like a product of that. Like the whole, because we were going through some lineup changes and
Mm.
trying to figure it out and everything. And then when Pat came in the band as our vocalist, like he wrote the lyrics during like lockdown, and we weren't even able to rehearse together. And he would like record lyrics and make demos for us, and send them back. And then once we were finally able to get back into like the recording studio and get the vocals done, then that was a different story. But like, yeah, it was very much, I think, like a COVID album. Like a lot of the songwriting was done remotely. Even before COVID happened, like we would just record little riffs and demos on like Reaper or Logic and send them to each other, and edit the wave files and do all this stuff. So it was very much like a remote process for quite a lot of it, even before COVID. But I mean, I think COVID did maybe bring some kind of an inspiration, I guess, to the lyrical part, what Pat might have brought into, because it's very much so like this world is a shithole right now, but the what we can we can move forward and do our best, and don't put others down while you're trying to get back into the game and all that. So yeah, but I mean that's pretty much the whole gist of that.
The track "The Invisible Hand," which is like, I believe on the record, is the second to last song. Is that a
Yeah.
holdover from Disbelief?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
So The Invisible Hand was one of the songs that we actually did write pretty much all together
Hmm.
when I was with when Zach was still in our band. Like he wrote everything else on that EP, but The Invisible Hand was one of the ones that instrumentally we all contributed to as well. So we kind of wanted to do like a re-recording of that song because we really liked it. You know, I thought lyrically it was cool to have like at least one sort of like political song in there, you know, too. And so yeah, so like I figured, you know, why not like re-record this song because I wasn't super happy with the recording that I had with our first EP. So we're like, yeah, why don't we just re-record the song and kind of, you know, bring that older style of Obstructionist back into the new one that we're doing and sort of at least try to vary up the sound of the album in a way because it's a little bit more straightforward than some of the other songs, I think. But
Yeah. Did
yeah.
you record your first EP yourselves, or did you go into a studio for that one?
We did record it ourselves. Yeah, it was very like DIY and like, you know, learning the ropes of
Hmm.
everything. Like this was my first time ever doing anything recording. Like I literally before that I was just playing guitar in my room and like, you know, I knew absolutely nothing about recording or anything like that, but my buddy Zach was really into home recording at the time and like the other guys were a bit more experienced with it as well. So we it was funny because at the time our guitarist was like teaching music at this like music school place and like they had like a stage where we'd practice. So they would let us come in at night and like record in their rooms that are like full of like
Hmm.
sound padding and stuff. And it was super DIY, man. Like it was crazy because we pretty much just used like I think like Axe effects or bias effects for the guitar tones and like the drums were recorded off like MIDI pads and like it's super, like, synthetic when you think about it, but at the same time, it was fun to just make something, like, DIY, and, like, I remember we made, like, a couch pillow fort thing to, like, isolate the vocals tracks, and we recorded in, like, a pillow fort to, like, muffle out the, you know,
Yeah.
acoustic sound when we were making vocals, so it was a pretty fun process, but it was, like I think I learned a lot from that and, like, what to do, you know, next time, but at the same time, it was really fun and, like, I had a lot of fun memories with that one.
Did you do anything different to Invisible Hand to kind of to breathe a little fresher or some newer life into it to make it fit into the debut record, or were you more just let's just take it and put it in there with what we have now?
We pretty much like just took it and re-recorded it and like played it exactly like we used to and how we would do it live. And I think Pat has a few like you know different like vocal inflections and stuff here and there, but like I think other than that, like yeah, like instrumentally it's pretty much the same and the lead guitars are the same and like I think it's just like the production value is better. So like that's kind of like how I like to view it as different, I guess. But
Hmm.
at the same time, yeah, we just took the song and re-recorded it like the exact same way it was before and kind of put it back in this new album. So
Yeah, I did want to ask. Knives is the first single for the record, which will be releasing as of recording this tomorrow, August 4th. So what about that song? Did you want to use as the introduction, the reintroduction to Obstructionist? What out of all of the ones on the album?
yeah, so I think we chose that because we I think playing it live was probably like the funnest one to do because like it was I think it like really because actually now that I think about it, that was the first song that we wrote like together
Hmm.
like as like kind of the new whole like chapter began for the band. Like that was like the first song we wrote together basically. And it kind of had like a sort of like a no effects vibe that we were all kind of into as well.
Yeah.
So it's like I think we just really chose it because we thought it was like the catchiest and like we really liked the drumming on it and like I think it's like not so like busy or crazy, like where it would just kind of like be too much or too just weird, I guess, as an introduction to like be like, hey, we're a band again. Like we have music. Here it is. You know, you haven't heard our music for the first time since like 2018. Like we just wanted to, we wanted to just like put something that was like a bit more. I don't know if straightforward would be the right word, but I guess something that was just a little bit more focused on like the songwriting and like less is more type of a way because it's like a lot of the verses are just like two chords and there's like it's a little bit more simple than the other songs so but there is also the catchiness vibe to it and I think lyrically it kind of just encapsulates like the whole theme that I was mentioning
Hmm.
like the whole point of the song is about like moving forward and facing life and tackling the day and not wasting your life and living every moment like it's your last, basically. So we're like, yeah, this pretty much sums up the lyrical concept of the album. So we kind of just decided on that. Like, yeah, I don't really have many particular reasons, I guess, but it was kind of just like, yeah, we thought it'd be cool, so we put it out.
Was Knives like that first song that as a band you wrote together and it was kind of like a we can do it? Like, was that the song where you kind of realized you could do it as a band was Zach is leaving?
Yeah, we could, yeah, because like it was funny when we very very first started doing it. Like I wrote a lot of the guitar parts for the song with him, and like on his laptop. And at the time he was living in St. Paul, but it was very very shortly after we ended up moving. So like, but yeah, I pretty much wrote a lot of the guitar parts, and then like he ended up sending me the demo files that we had so far before he moved. And so we yeah, but that was pretty much like the inception of like the new like era of the band and our new songwriting direction. And yeah, so it pretty much went from there. Like I think the song I remember like specifically thinking of like Comeback Kid a lot when I was writing
Mhm.
that song, and like sort of those like big chords, almost like borderline like metalcore sounding chords that just like are super like wall of sound. And
Yep.
I was like, yeah, this would be like a cool sound to do moving on. So that's kind of like the whole start of that.
Gotcha. When were you playing? So then, were you playing out over the recording of this record as a band? Because when did to like so people you because you mentioned like you played this with one of the Knives was like a song you really enjoyed playing live. So during that kind of hiatus, were you trying to between the two releases? Were you trying to play out then, or
Yeah, a little bit. So like kind of like I said, we kind of went through like some weird lineup changes because there was a point where we did find a vocalist and we did find a bass player. And that bass player ended up recording the bass for our album that we're about to put out and everything. But the vocalist ended up like kind of just like wanting to move into a direction that we weren't really necessarily into. Like he was definitely more into like the hardcore vein,
Mhm.
like not really much into the melodic side of stuff and more of like the clean singing parts and stuff. Like I mean, I like, don't get me wrong, I love hardcore music like Bane and like Nails and stuff like that, but that was very much like his direction that he kind of wanted to take it. And I think like when COVID was coming, like we were like sort of like saying like maybe we shouldn't practice for a while to be safe. And like there was just like some little clashes in direction and creative focus. So he ended up actually like moving on, and he is actually just playing it, I think, in another band right now. So but during the time when he was in our band, yeah, we did play like a gig or two. I think like at Cadence Records at one point. Like um I think Palmer's Bar, I think too. I think we played like two gigs or something. But yeah, that's pretty much the only times we played live like during that whole hiatus, really. Because like before, because yeah, I mean, we were trying to find like a vocalist and stuff
Mhm.
for the longest time after Zach left. So it's like, but once we did for a while, like we did play a few gigs, but then like we kind of went back to square one again. So yeah, so very very little gigging in between, I think. But
All right. I know I'm a little all over the place with the questions I'm asking, but I did want to ask about the final song, "End Times," because you like the specifically the way that song ends. Because as you know, we come into the final song, it's very kind of dour, but it ends on a very like ethereal note with that piano organ string thing that's going on at the end, where it's like a good like you're not sure how to feel at the end of that song, or at least I wasn't. The handful of times I've managed to listen, I've had time to listen to it. But like, where does he hit that moment? It almost feels like everything can slightly be okay, or what? Who was that? Whose idea was it to end the record that way?
that would have been our lead guitarist, Eric. So Eric is his background is really cool. So I think he went to St. Thomas, I believe, for music. Like he is like a
Hmm.
professional music teacher, and like he's got a really good ear for like good chord progressions, and like he does all the guitar solos on the album. Like I do all the rhythm guitar and stuff like that. But yeah, when we were writing End Times, like I came up with like the riffs and like pretty much all the guitars like during the fast parts of the song. But like towards the end he came up with like that chord progression where the bass comes in by itself, and then like the keyboards and all that. And yeah, so that was pretty
Mm-hmm.
much him. Like I think that was really just like his somewhat classical background, and like he wanted to do something that was kind of a weird contrast because like the beginning of the song and End Times it's like super fast and just like somewhat shreddy riffing and stuff like that, but then like at
Yeah.
the end of it it kind of just like we're like how do we bring this to the ground, I guess. So so he pretty much came up with like that melody going on that kind of keeps repeating with like the bass and the guitar solo, and then like the organs kind of come in. So I'm not. Yeah, like it's kind of funny. I remember he just showed up to practice one time. He's like, "Oh, check out this new
Mm-hmm.
little thing I added to the end of the song," and like I was like, "That's super cool." Like I never would have thought of like organs or synths and like the type of music we're playing, but it was pretty cool. But yeah, that was pretty much all Eric's idea. So
Gotcha. Did he add the little flourishes to the invisible hand then too? Because like that because there's it because the original recording didn't quite have that, and that's what gave me pause. Was like, is it just two different names? Like the songs are connected, or is it the same song?
oh yeah, yep. So yeah, like I guess there were a few like little flourishes and stuff you would add in, like just like little like twinkling notes in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning intro, and like I think like some of the harmonies on the lead guitar parts might be a little bit more expansive than they were. But it's been so long since I listened to the first original recording of the Invisible Hand, like I had a hard time comparing. But it's yeah, but he definitely for every single song, like I wrote a lot of the songs on this new album, but like they just would not be the same without like Eric and also Herman, because they are so good at just adding these little like flares that just make everything catchy and like
Mm-hmm.
more interesting music wise and songwriting wise, because like I'm very much like into like riff driven type of stuff, but they bring the like proper chord progression knowledge and like yeah, like the little synths here and there
Mm-hmm.
and like the harmonizing and stuff like that. So something I could never do by myself. So they I think they add a lot of character to our music. So
Yeah. You went into 1449 or 1459 studios to record this one. Was that your first proper time recording music in a studio, or did you manage to get in there
yeah,
before?
that's super cool. Yeah, I don't know if I think the other guys in the band like had more like studio experience and stuff like that, or at least recording experience. But yeah, we went to 1459, and like they do a lot of like metal bands. Like I like their whole repertoire is like a lot of like death metal and stuff like
E-
that. So like we're going into this, so I'm like I dig the idea of a metal production style, but at the same time I'm like, I don't know if what he's gonna think of us because I like to call us a punk band, so it's like
yeah.
I don't know. Oh, this punk band comes into our studio, but but he was super cool. His name is Will, and yeah, he runs 1459, and it was just like a small studio, and like yeah, we recorded and tracked all our instruments in there, and but yeah, that was like my first studio experience. Like it was really cool. Like it was one of those things. Like I never realized how like humiliating
Oh,
recording in a studio is.
it
Like
is.
it's yeah, like it's super cool, like but like in a good way, like in a
Yeah.
really awesome constructive way, because I feel so much better as a like recording knowledge, but also just like playing guitar and like trying to play tight and everything. Because I remember it reminded me so much of like I don't know if you've seen that like documentary with like Metallica recording the Black Album with like Bob Rock and stuff like
Hmm.
that. But like he's like this like super harsh producer and is just like that take sounded like shit, do it again. And
Yeah.
it's I mean, Will at 1459 was not like that harsh or anything, but it reminded me of that because he would really like to like push you to like do your absolute best take, and like he wasn't the kind of person where if you did a very like loose take on a song or a loose guitar riff, he wouldn't, he still had the guts to like say it to you. It's like this isn't gonna sound good. You should do it again. And like no matter how many times you didn't get the take right, he would be like, "Oh, it's just like a little tighter in this area." And like
Hmm.
I'm really happy about that because I think like the music just wouldn't be the same without like him as a producer, sort of like pushing our abilities to be as tight as we possibly can. And so I'm happy with the end result from that studio. It was a really cool experience.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah, I was in my first like proper recording studio over COVID, and just like hearing yourself back in that context is such a like, oh, I am not as good as I thought I was in this room. Like, just trying to be like, all right, I gotta up my game in the best way possible right now.
Exactly. Like it was cool. I mean, like at least when we went to the studio, we had all the songs really down by heart, and we
Mm.
didn't like improvise or do these weird little additions in the studio or anything like that. Like we showed up like we're okay. It's like we're on a time crunch. We're paying money. Let's just like really play our guts out with this thing and like do it our best shot, you know. But yeah, it didn't take super long, but yeah, I mean, it was one of those experiences where I think it really helped us all grow as musicians and like going into a studio for the first time was intimidating, of course, but at the same time, it was very much. I think like it was a great experience.
Absolutely. Well, do you
Yeah.
have like a favorite like memory or moment from like putting, your self-titled debut together, whether it was writing or being in the studio or anything like that? Does there like something come to mind when you think about it?
Yeah, kind of just a couple. I mean, I don't know about specific moments necessarily, but it's just kind of like the I guess like the feelings you'd get like just through different like courses of life during the band, I guess, because I remember when Zach did leave, it was really it was really hard and depressing because I mean Zach is like my best friend to this
Hmm.
day. We still talk all the time, but like at the time we're like, what do we do? And then like it felt very, I guess, invigorating to kind of like move forward and like I felt I had more confidence in myself to like move forward with the band and like having like being able to write our own songs for like the first time as a band was really cool, I think too. I remember specifically coming up with like the riffs for like End Times and Soft and Gray and
Hmm.
Knives and like all those songs. Like I remember like the specific moments in time where I was coming up with those riffs. I'm like, yeah, this would be super fun. And like I think honestly the entire process of building this whole project again was like the whole thing has been great. Like I absolutely love playing with music with those guys and practicing and like our little practice sessions are always super fun. It's like always my highlight of the week to go play music with them and honestly the entire experience I like with this new album I'm just like loving every second of it and like I'm happier than ever with the music and everything that we're doing. Um but I think, yeah, like it was funny. So Eric, our lead guitarist, and our drummer Herman, they used to live in a house in Minneapolis, kind of near Riverside,
Okay.
and we would practice in their basement and stuff. And it was super crammed and like super like we were playing on like little practice amps because we couldn't haul down our amps down that janky staircase that they had. So it was like it's kind of like just those little like we're just hanging out as friends playing music moments like that. I think are the best, and they never get old for me. So.
Absolutely. Do you have
Yeah.
a release date for the record, or are you still holding on to that one?
Yeah, we do. So, the record will be out on September 16th, I believe. But
Okay.
yeah, but the single Knives is August 4th. So, yep.
And then last few questions here. What are your plans moving forward? I'm excited I get to ask people what they're doing coming up instead of just like, well, COVID's existing. So
Yeah.
what's the plans moving on now that you got your record in the can? It's coming out soon. You got a single coming out by the time this airs. Like, what's next for Obstructionist?
I think right now, I think our primary goal is just kind of like reestablishing ourselves again,
Mhm.
like kind of trying to reclaim any hint of relevance we ever tried to make back in the day when we first started. Because when we put out that EP, we were just getting started, and then like a few months later, it kind of just went back to square one again. So I mean, we're barely just getting our footing in the door right now. So I think right now it's just we're trying to connect more with like artists in the scene, like I've been trying to go to shows more, and like there's a lot of bands in the scene that I really, really, really respect, like Heart to Gold and
Mhm.
Pierre and Grandma and like that type of scene. So I don't know. I would love to play shows with those types of bands. Like if any of them are listening right now, like hit me up.
Yeah.
It'd be super. But yeah, so like we're just trying to like connect and play more shows, and we're finally establishing our lineup. So we're just trying to get the songs tight, and then we're just gonna try booking shows and possibly reach out to some like DIY record labels maybe and see if they like could help us promote our stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah.
You said you've been going to shows. What was your first band back then you saw?
Ah, is like a DIY show, you mean? Like local band or
just any band you saw, whatever last, since now shows we can go to shows again.
Yeah, sure. So I just like a week or two ago, I went to it was at Part Wolf. They had Tightwire and In Lieu and Victor Shores playing.
Yep.
That was such a fun show, and it was like I think all those bands, like it was pretty much like their first show since COVID, and like the whole place was like packed, and like it was such a great feeling. Like honestly, like I mean, just like seeing that again, and like that was the first show I went to before COVID happened. So like it was a really cool experience.
Nice. Yeah, I saw that one. That was a stacked bill. I didn't get to go myself, but it looked sick.
It was such a good lineup. Like it was so cool. That was my first time seeing Tightwire as well, which I'm also a huge fan of. So
I don't think I've seen In Lieu play. I love In Lieu, and I've listened to Tightwire, so I don't think I've ever seen those bands perform. But
they're good. They're so tight and solid. Yeah.
Well then, finally here, where can people connect with Obstructionist online, listen to your music, and find you guys on social media?
Totally. So we have Facebook. I think should be Obstructionist, and then we also have Instagram and Twitter. Twitter, it's at it's Obst Band, like OBST Band, like just a short way to do that, I guess. But yeah, so we have Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. So yeah, just like DM us or something, and yeah, that's how you can get a hold of us.
Cool. Well, Andy, I thank you so much for coming in and wanting to chat with me about your music.
Oh yeah, thank you for having me. It's been awesome. I appreciate it.
The Ear Coffee Podcast is a companion to the blog of the same name. If you like this episode, please leave us a rate and review so we can stand out among the other music podcasts. You can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Ear Coffee. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.